Karen posed as a historian to get cheaper relics. Dealers sold her fakes and laughed in her face. Karen had always been clever, the kind of woman who could talk her way into or out of anything. Her sharp tongue and quick wit had served her well in the small, gossipy town of Eldridge, where she'd built a reputation as a self-proclaimed historian. She wasn't one, of course not by training or degree, but she'd read enough books and watched enough documentaries to fake it convincingly. Her obsession with ancient relics, particularly rare pottery from forgotten civilizations, drove her to perfect the act. She'd stroll into antique shops, her notepad filled with scribbled jargon, tossing around terms like Mycenaean and provenance to charm dealers into lowering their prices. It worked, too, most of the time. This time, though, she'd set her sights on a prize. A rumored Minoan vase, said to be unearthed from a Cretan dig site, now sitting in the back room of Old Man Carver's shop. Carver was a local legend, a dealer with a knack for sniffing out liars and a reputation for ruthless bargaining. Karen wasn't fazed. She'd done her homework, memorized every detail about Minoan pottery, and even forged a letterhead from a non-existent museum to bolster her credentials. She walked into Carver's shop that crisp autumn morning, her heart pounding with anticipation, her plan airtight. The shop smelled of dust and old wood, its shelves groaning under the weight of artifacts, some real, most dubious. Carver, a wiry man with a permanent smirk, eyed her as she entered. "Heard you're a historian," he said, his voice dripping with skepticism. Karen smiled, launching into her rehearsed spiel about her research and her museum connections. She name-dropped obscure archaeologists, her words polished and confident. Carver nodded, his eyes narrowing, but he played along, leading her to the back room where the vase sat on a velvet cloth. It was stunning, intricate swirls, faded ochre hues, the kind of piece that could rewrite history. Or so she thought. They haggled for an hour, Karen weaving her lies with precision, Carver countering with cryptic remarks. She felt the thrill of victory when he finally agreed to a pricier steal at $2,000, far below the vase's supposed value. She handed over the cash, her hands trembling with excitement, and left the shop clutching her prize. That night, she pored over the vase, imagining the prestige it would bring her in Eldridge's tight-knit collector circle. She'd be the talk of the town, the woman who'd outsmarted Carver. But the next morning, a stranger knocked on her door, a young woman, no older than 25, with nervous eyes and a worn backpack. She introduced herself as Lila, an apprentice archaeologist who'd been trailing the Minoan vase for months. "I heard you bought it," Lila said, her voice shaky. "I need to see it." Karen, sensing an opportunity to flaunt her acquisition, invited her in. Lila's face fell the moment she saw the vase. "It's fake," she whispered, pointing to subtle flaws, the glaze too glossy, the etchings too precise. Karen laughed, dismissing her, but Lila's certainty gnawed at her. She demanded proof. Lila pulled out a notebook, filled with photos and notes from her digs in Crete. She explained how Carver had been peddling fakes for years, preying on amateurs like Karen who thought they could outsmart him. The real Minoan vase, Lila said, was still buried somewhere in Crete, and she'd been tracking its trail until Carver's scam derailed her. Karen's stomach churned. She stormed back to the shop, vase in hand, her face burning with fury. Carver was waiting, his smirk wider than ever. "Figured it out, did ya?" he taunted, leaning back in his chair. "You thought you could play me, historian. I saw through you the second you walked in." Karen's voice shook as she demanded her money back, but Carver just laughed a cold, mocking sound that echoed through the shop. "You wanted a deal, you got one," he said, waving her off. "Take your fake and go." The humiliation stung worse than the loss of the money. She'd been outplayed, her carefully crafted persona shattered in an instant. As she stood there, clutching the worthless vase, Lila appeared in the doorway, her expression a mix of pity and resolve. "He's done this to others," she said softly. "I'm going to expose him. Help me." Karen hesitated, her pride warring with her anger. She'd been a fraud, yes, but Carver's deceit ran deeper, profiting off dreams and trust. In that moment, She saw a chance for redemption not as a historian, but as someone who could right a wrong. She nodded, her jaw tight, and agreed to join Lila's fight. They spent weeks gathering evidence, photos, receipts, testimonies from other victims. Lila's passion was infectious, her quiet determination a stark contrast to Karen's flashy bravado. But the deeper they dug, the uglier it got. Carver had connections, powerful ones, who protected his schemes. The town turned against Karen and Lila, dismissing them as troublemakers. Eldridge thrived on its quaint charm, and no one wanted their cozy antique trade exposed as a lie. Karen's reputation crumbled further. Old friends shunned her, whispering about her lies. Lila, too, faced threats, her dreams of becoming an archaeologist jeopardized by the town's elite. In a final, desperate move, Karen confronted Carver at a town meeting, holding up the fake vase for all to see. Her voice cracked as she admitted her own deception, bearing her shame to expose his. The crowd was silent, torn between shock and disbelief. Carver, unfazed, shrugged and walked away, his allies ensuring no consequences followed. Lila left town the next day, defeated, her notebook of evidence useless against a system that valued profit over truth. Karen stood alone, the vase still in her hands, its weight a reminder of her folly. The bitter truth settled in. She'd chased glory and lost everything: her money, her pride, her place in Eldridge. The vase, a symbol of her ambition, was now just a hollow lie. She placed it on her mantle not as a trophy, but as a warning. Trust, she realized, was the rarest relic of all, and she'd squandered it. What do you think? Does Karen's deception justify her fate, or is Carver's unchecked greed the real injustice here? Share your thoughts on where justice lies in this tangled web of lies and betrayal.